I trusted you as a human. How do you expect me to still love you as a gorilla?
I never knew this would happen to me.
This is the story of Morenike, a village girl who got married to a monkey. The reason of this marriage will shock you. Before I continue this story, subscribe and comment where you are watching from. I would love to know where you are watching from. Let's continue. In the heart of a wide African plain, where red earth stained the feet of travelers and tall Iroko trees watched silently over generations, there stood a village called Akunwale. The people of Akunwale believed strongly in tradition. To them, laws were not suggestions, they were living spirits. What the ancestors set in place was not to be questioned, argued with, or bent. You either obeyed or you suffered the consequences. One of the strongest laws in Akunwale was the law of marriage. It was said that marriage tied not only two people, but also their destinies. A man who betrayed his wife would not die immediately. Instead, he would lose his human form and become an animal of shame, doomed to live with the weight of his wrongdoing. Everyone knew the stories. Everyone believed them. It was in this village that Morenike was born. She grew into a calm and respectful woman, known for her quiet nature and gentle speech. People say she listened more than she talked, and when she spoke, her words carried weight. When she married Akunwale, a hardworking farmer with broad shoulders and an honest heart, the entire village celebrated. Drums echoed for days. Palm wine flowed freely. Elders blessed the union and prayed that children would soon fill their compound. To outsiders, theirs was a perfect marriage, but perfection is often what hides problems best. Inside Morenike's heart lived a fear she had never spoken aloud. She had been taught many things about being a wife, how to cook, how to kneel, how to obey, but no one had taught her how to truly share herself with their husband. And fear, when left alone, grows quietly. Every evening, Akunwale returned from his farm, tired but hopeful. He expected companionship, conversation, and closeness. Morenike welcomed him with food and respect, yet when night came, she always found a reason to keep distance between them. Sometimes she claimed sickness. Other times, she stayed awake grinding pepper or visiting her mother until sleep took over. To her, this avoidance felt like safety. To him, it felt like rejection. Akunwale did not shout. He did not beat her. He taught himself patience was part of love, but patience has limits and silence has consequences. Night after night, he'd lay awake, confused. He wondered if he had offended her, or if the ancestors were angry with him. Morenike, on her part, did not understand the signs. She believed love meant service alone. No elder had ever sat her down to explain that marriage was also about closeness, communication, and shared desires. In Akunwale, such conversations were taboo, especially for women. As weeks turned into months, an invisible wall grew between them. They lived under the same roof, but in different worlds. And when two hearts drift apart without words, danger finds room to sit comfortably. Morenike had a younger sister named Sadike, and she was everything Morenike was not. Where Morenike was quiet, Sadike was loud. Where Morenike avoided sensitive topics, Sadike spoke freely and laughed easily. She visited often and noticed what others did not: the tension, the silence, the loneliness. One evening, she found Akunwale sitting outside alone, staring at the fire. She asked questions casually, but her curiosity was sharp. Slowly, Akunwale opened up. He spoke of confusion, of feeling unwanted, of carrying a burden he could not explain to his wife. Sadike listened. At first it was harmless, But attention is powerful. It softens hardened hearts. Her sympathy became comfort, and comfort became closeness. Adekunle fought himself, reminding his heart of the village law, but desire whispered louder than wisdom. That night, due to the attention Sadike gave Adekunle, Adekunle mistakenly had sex with his wife's sister Sadike. That night, without the knowledge of his wife, it all came like a temptation. Adekunle couldn't believe himself. It came quietly, the way danger often does. After Adekunle crossed the line he had sworn never to cross, he returned home feeling heavy, restless, and afraid. Sleep refused to come. His body was in his house, but his spirit felt exposed, as if unseen eyes were watching him from the darkness. Before dawn, the earth shifted. At first it felt like sickness. His bones ached, his skin burned, and his breath became uneven. He tried to call Morenike, but his voice cracked into a strange sound that frightened even him. As the sun rose, pain tore through his body like wildfire. His arms stretched, his chest expanded, and thick, dark hair pushed through his skin. By the time the first rooster crowed, Adekunle was no longer a man. The villagers heard the roar and rushed to his compound. What they saw froze their blood. Standing where a man once stood was a massive gorilla, tied to human memories but trapped in an animal body. His eyes still carried shame, fear, and regret. The elders did not argue. They did not ask questions. They simply nodded. The law has spoken, they had said. When Morenike saw what her husband had become, her legs failed her. She screamed, cried, and begged the elders to explain. Her heart refused to believe what her eyes clearly saw. That creature had her husband's eyes. That beast knew her name. Her first thought was to run. But the elders stopped her immediately. In Akunwale, there was another law, one that women fear more than death itself. A woman who abandons her husband invites death into her own body. Divorce was not freedom, it was a curse. Morenike stood shaking as the truth settled in. She had lost her husband, yet she was still bound to him. She had done no wrong, yet she would carry the burden. The elders ordered the gorilla brought into a compound. The curse was his, but the consequence was hers. That night, Morenike did not sleep. She sat in one corner of the room, watching the gorilla breathe heavily, occasionally letting out a low, sorrowful sound. Fear battled pity inside her chest. Days passed, and Morenike learned what it meant to live with shame in public and sorrow in private. She fed the gorilla, cleaned after him, and kept him hidden when strangers came. The man she married was gone, but his responsibility remained. The village changed toward her. Some women mocked her. Others whispered that she deserved it. Few remembered that silence and ignorance were her real enemies. Children pointed. Songs were sung quietly behind her back. At night, when the village slept, the gorilla would sit still, staring at the moon. Sometimes tears rolled down his face. Those were the moments Morenike understood. He remembered everything. The market of Akunwale became a place of pain. Conversations lowered when she arrived, then rose again in whispers. People stared, not with curiosity, but with judgment. She lowered her head, carried her basket, and returned home without answering insults. Yet something changed inside her. For the first time, she began to ask questions she had never asked before. Questions about marriage, about closeness, about what she and her husband had both been denied by silence. As weeks passed, the gorilla grew restless. He paced the compound and stared toward the forest. One night, he broke his rope and fled toward the trees. Fear rushed through Moenake, but love pushed her forward. She followed him into the forest and found him beneath a tall Iroko tree, crying like a man. In that moment, she understood that the curse had not erased his humanity. From that night on, she spoke to him openly. She explained her fears, her ignorance, and the silence that shaped her actions. The gorilla listened patiently. Slowly, understanding replaced resentment. Hope entered her heart. She went to the oracle, who listened carefully and spoke without emotion. The curse, she said, was born from broken law, but fed by misunderstanding. Endurance, truth, and growth could weaken it. Change came slowly. Morenike sought wisdom from older women who spoke honestly. She learned that a marriage was not only service, but shared life. At home, she treated her husband with openness instead of fear. These moments were not easy, but they were honest. News of Sadike's role reached the elders. She was banished from Akunwale as a warning. Morenike watched her sister live with sadness and understanding, knowing ignorance destroys both the guilty and the innocent. One night, the spirits gathered. The forest moved strangely and unseen drums echoed. Morenike knelt beside her husband and spoke the truth without fear. She chose responsibility over escape. At dawn, the curse began to crack. Fur fell. Bones shifted. By sunrise, Adekunle lay on the earth, human again, scarred but wiser. They returned to the village together, humbled and changed, their home filled with conversation, patience, and learning. The village watched as mockery faded into respect. Till today, elders tell this story by firelight. They say marriage without communication invites disaster. Desire ignored becomes temptation. Silence becomes destruction. Moral lesson. Marriage survives on understanding, honesty, and shared responsibility. When either partner refuses to learn, both may suffer the consequences. If this African folktale taught you something meaningful, like this video. Subscribe for more African stories and wisdom. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. What lesson stood out to you the most? More stories are coming. More wisdom awaits.